Happy New Year. No, that's not a mistake in the bulletin. It's not a mistake in the sign out in front. It's not that somehow or another Jim Lyons finally got his act together and was working a month in advance and got the wrong bulletin together. Happy New Year. It's a recognition that today, the first Sunday of Advent, is the beginning of the church's new year. Did you know that? Bob passed by it very quickly in his excellent summary of what Advent was all about, but this is the traditional new year in which churches begin to focus upon what's coming along in the past. I have often lamented from this pulpit that too many times we turn New Year's over to the secular world. And even though we as a church get together and have some fun and so on, we see New Year's as being a secular event. What I want us to do at this point is to ponder upon the concept of the new year very, very briefly in about 5.5 minutes as to what it means in terms of Pine Hill Congregational Church. A new year not only is the beginning of something, it's the ending of something. In all of history, life is seen as a continuum, and we recognize as we move along that there's something different about us today than yesterday, but it's oftentimes difficult to find out what it is. It becomes easier as we try to understand life as a continuum when we look back at where we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Some of us can look at some pictures and see less gray in certain areas. Some of us can look at some pictures and see a little more of a vivaciousness that slows down as the regularity of life moves along. Young people in particular change so quickly that you look at the pictures of your kids in the school years one after another as the year goes along, and you wonder when they change so much. Or you'll see the dramatic change in a matter of a few weeks in a young child, a baby. And it happens like, and we say how, why, where, what was the major difference? And yet there are times in all of our lives when there are major differences. Baptism signifies a difference, marriage signifies a difference, death signifies an essential difference, and New Year's is a time, I think, for us to reflect upon the difference of where we have been and where we want to go. So in the first place, New Year's is very much a time of new beginnings. It's a time when we reflect on our past and the things that we've done wrong in the past, and each one of us needs to make a certain kind of New Year's resolution, not in this familiar sense of how soon can I break it, and the rather flighty approach to life, well, I would rather not do this, but in the hardcore self-examination of our own existence, saying to ourselves under God, because this is a church new year, what is it that I need to do to be what only I can be, to fulfill your purposes for me and to reach out with the kind of drive and hope and help that will enable others to live more creatively. It's a new year and new beginnings. It's a time to make a break. And I do not want you to understand this as the kind of idiotic excuse that people will say very often. I'm going to give up, quote, smoking, unquote. Fill in there anything you want. When New Year's comes, a way of postponing the decision. What I want us to do during the course of this day, as we prepare for the meeting tonight, is to reflect upon our existence under God and in this church. It is fortuitous that this meeting tonight is falling on this particular Sunday. It is fortuitous that the kinds of discussions that ultimately come up at these meetings is falling on this particular Sunday. It is fortuitous that we take an opportunity and to look towards the past and see, as we have done over recent weeks on our anniversary Sunday and on other Sundays in the month, what we have done and how we can be thankful. But it is more fortuitous for us to understand that we must make the decisions for the future. If you read the excellent Pine Log this time with a very fine book review by Don Winter, another by Mary Hasha, and my little bit on Oh God, you recognize that God put the future in our hands. I think in one of the most poignant ways where God says to John Denver, I'm good on the present, I'm excellent on the past, but I don't know what the future will bring. If I did, it wouldn't be up to you. You make the decision. And in the Pine Hill Congregational Church, as we begin to gather, that is the call that comes to you. For no one of us can understand what the future is going to be until collectively we make the decisions and move forward. We cannot continue to ride as we are now on the accomplishments of the past. We must take definite strides forward. And what are the kinds of strides that need to be taken? One of them is budget. I have no idea what the trustees have in terms of a budget. I will guarantee you that they're going to come in with a budget will probably please you and is going to be at least 50% too low of what we ought to have. As soon as I say budget, some of you get very tight in the stomach. I would suggest to you, if you do, you're probably not satisfying your own giving to the church. Which one of you gives out of your gross salary 10% back to God? Not only you, but us. Which one of you which one of us gives not only 10% of our gross, but 10% of our net back to God? How many in this church give 5% back to God? 1%? 2%? 3%? Who knows? It's not important. I have no idea what anybody gives in the church except me. And that is not only an honest statement, but it is one which I hold to be true. But I guarantee you that whatever we do in terms of our giving in the future is going to make a difference in terms of this church and the direction in which it goes and its appeal, not only to us but to others. Look, we've got some things that are being creatively done up here. We've got programming we haven't even touched yet. We've got young people that we haven't kept our vows of faithfulness to. We've got efforts that we need to reach out to create a spirit of community service that we haven't touched in a long time. We have not manufactured the kinds of creative programs that will enable us to reach out with a newness of life and God and life for a lot of reasons. Because when we're talking about the tithe of money, we're also talking about the tithe of time. How many times have you in the past year or two been asked to do something and said, I'm too busy? Too busy doing what? Too busy serving what? Too busy serving whom? How many one of us can really honestly say our commitment to God is strong enough that we will set aside some of the pleasures of our life for a pleasure of serving and working together? How many of our young people who are working give any of their money to the church at all? Or is that part of what the parents do for them? Have we taught our kids that they have obligations from very early age, that part of what they earn, part of what they receive, part of what their existence is to reach out and to help others and to give? But the future of where this church goes is not mine, and it's no one person sitting here. It's not God's. It's each one of us working together. And there are people in this church who are tired. There are people in this church who are frustrated. There are people in this church who have given their efforts. There are people in this church who have run against brick walls. There are people in this church who have said they will do and haven't done. There are the frustrations that are part of every single organization of life. But we have one added thing. When we get tired, we gather around the table. We give thanks to God for what He has done. We can somehow or another stimulate our thinking and our very being through that gathering and recognize the most essential thing that makes us different than every other organization in God's creation. That is, there is the Spirit of God indwelling in each one of us, willing to give the kind of strength that enables us to overcome. Don't be surprised if the next time I call you, I'll say, how well is God's Spirit working in you? Is it working well enough that you're willing to do this? Because you see, no one of us can do it alone. And as we gather now in a festival of thanksgiving, as we gather tonight in a festival of service, as we gather around the table this evening in a festival of friendliness and fellowship, I want each one of you to reflect on where you are now. I will not be at the meeting tonight. This is the one meeting out of the church year that I never attend for rather obvious reasons. I will not know what's going on because none of my family will be at that meeting. The church family, I hope, will be there. And will make some of the kinds of decisions that need to be made, that the inbreaking Spirit of God will continue to flood this community and this church. If I speak boldly, it's because of what's been done in the past. If some of you were upset, please don't be upset with me. Examine your own existence. For I, above all others, understand how important it is that each one of us in this joyous new year grab the initiative and move this congregation forward. Shall we prayerfully sing, "Blessed be the tie that binds"?